Hello Kerbonauts, this is episode 2 of our Kerbal Space Program walkthrough. And as you can remember from last time, we had a complete failure. This bottom section didn't want to disconnect from our top section. And we also had some problems controlling the vehicle. It ended up nosediving on us. So we're going to have to look at those two issues. I think the number one issue with this not disconnecting from this is we're just going to go ahead and get rid of that for now. And then we're going to go ahead and just put a standard decoupler and go with that. So we're going to go with that. And then also I touched on last episode these stabilization augmentation system, the SAS. I talked about them briefly in the last episode. They kind of help keep your rocket under control. It's like autopilot. So you don't have to manually fly your rocket, which I'm not very good at. And it will help during our launch procedure. So we're going to go ahead and grab one of these modules, and we're going to stick it underneath our last decoupler. So that's going to control the whole vehicle. Everything from this point down is going to be controlled by this SAS module. And since we're going to need a little more control when we have an atmosphere, we're going to go ahead and use these wings. Now the wings I forgot to touch on last episode because we really didn't really use them, so I wanted to keep it short. So they give us two wings here that we can use, and they work in conjunction with the SAS module. You have a delta wing, and then you have a swept-back wing. I like the swept-back wing more for the rocket feel, but they're both. I mean, you can see one. Here's the delta wing. It's a little big. It's going to be a little bigger than the swept-back. So there you go. You got your two winglets there. There's the delta and your swept-back. But I think we're going to go with the swept-back. I like this wing easy. Now what you can do is hit the symmetry key, and that will put three winglets centered around the center columns. So they'll be symmetrically aligned from the center column. And our top of our ship is indicated by the cockpit windows. This is the view from the top of the ship. So I want to kind of get a little bit of rocket slash airplane feel, I guess. So we got our two side wings and then a tail wing. But as you can see, that just put them three equally distanced from each other, and they're based off the center axis of the rocket. That's how the symmetry works. So we're going to go ahead and add some more fuel tanks. I think that's going to be needed because I want to maybe not use the boosters. Let's try not use the solid boosters. Let's see if we can just get into space with the liquid fuel boosters. So I'm going to add, I think I'm just going to go with 3 for now. That feels good. So we got 3 tanks, and then we're going to go with just the standard booster. So we're going to replace those 3 solid boosters with 3 tanks, and they'll run this one rocket. And then when that burns out, we'll activate this decoupler, and then we'll use our last section. The SAS module will control the winglets and help us stay on a straight line when we go into orbit. So let's go ahead and save this as Kerb2. Save that. And let's get to the launch pad. Now here we are on the launch pad. Now I'll show you the cool thing about the wings. The wings right now are rigid. And what we're going to do is turn on the advanced SAS module by hitting the T key. And you can see that turns on the SAS module, and it also activates the wings. As you can see, the wings are trying to adjust to try and keep the rocket steady and stable on the course that you predetermined. So you can turn off the SAS, steer your ship when you get to a point of where you want to stay as far as angle and approach to your orbit, I guess, whatever you're trying to orbit, whether it be Kerbal or Moon. So you can do your manual flying and then hit the T key and now lock in your position so you don't have to worry about going too far or going too less. And when you can see when you turn off the SAS, the wings go back to rigid. You have no control over the wings. And when you steer your ship, you can see as I'm steering manually, the wings will work. But the SAS is sort of like autopilot. So we're just going to go ahead and leave the SAS on because manual flight during launch is really hard and it's not advisable. So what we're going to go ahead and do is launch this in 3, 2, 1. Now you can see right off the bat, I think we have way too much weight. I think the rocket is just not going to be powerful enough. Oh, I know why. Because we forgot to turn the throttle up. So let's crank the throttle. We could have had liftoff. Well, let's just do the test for now. You can see the winglets are working. Keep our rocket stable. You can see the green circle is overlapping the magenta cross. The magenta cross indicates the rear of the rocket's position, and the green circle indicates the tip of the rocket. So as you can see, I'm going to leave this on, but I'm going to try and push the rocket a little off at an angle. We're not really moving that much. The SAS is preventing me from doing any kind of real movement, which is good. We don't want to crash right now. We're still trying to get off the ground. So hopefully we can get it into space. I didn't mess up too bad. I forgot to raise the throttle, and I think that might have cost us some fuel. And that might stop us from getting into space. There's a rookie error. I think Bob realizes my mistake. Jebediah and Bill are still kind of oblivious to launch controls utter failure. So I think what we're going to do now is let this burn through, and while it does that, I can explain a couple more features during flight. Yay! So up here you have a warp speed. Now what that will do is increase the time. So if you got some long flights and you don't want to sit here for a half hour watching your rocket fly, you can actually increase the time warp. So it just speeds up the clock. And unfortunately, while you have the SAS module activated, you can't go faster than twice the time. But when we get into space, what I'll do is I'll turn this module off, and then I'll increase the time warp, and you can see how much more time you can get. Now, as we get closer to the atmosphere, you can see I'm running out of fuel, and we lost our first stage. So I'm going to decouple it, and then ignite this rocket. Now we're still at full speed, and I'm kind of afraid I might burn out of fuel pretty fast at that. So we're going to go ahead and drop the throttle down to about half. You can see we're still gaining altitude, and we're leaving the atmosphere. We don't have too far to go before we're in actual space. And we've got about half a fuel tank left. So I think we're going to drop the throttle just down a little bit more. And while we're in this flight mode, and let me just tap that down a little more, I'm going to hit the M key. Now the M key is going to show us the orbital view. There we go. And as you can see, here's our spaceship, Kerb 2. Now at this current speed and thrust, this will be our highest altitude before... Oh, and you can see, I think we just lost fuel. Yep, we're dead now. So in order to lessen our weight even more, I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that section. And right now we just have the capsule. We're in outer space, in the vacuum of space. So we did break the atmosphere, and we're still climbing as far as altitude. So let's go ahead and look at our orbital view. Now orbital view shows our planet, and also shows the orbit of the moon around the planet. And at some point we're going to want to get there. But as you can see, the altitude's about 11 million meters, and the highest altitude we will achieve will be unfortunately 247. So you do have your flight control window here, which you can activate. And we're going to turn off the S.A.S. because we don't have winglets anymore. And here, I can show you the time warp. You can see 3 times warp, 20, 50, and 100. So as you're decelerating, it doesn't allow you to go too much in the time zone warp if you're doing a lot of things at once, because it's pretty hard for it to crunch the numbers as far as the simulator is concerned. So what we're going to do is go ahead and leave that down to 2, and we're going to go back to the ship view, and you hit that by M. As you can see, our orbit, we didn't really have an orbit. We reached a certain point in our altitude, and we lost fuel, and now we're coming back to the Earth, or not the Earth, Kerbal. So I'm going to switch to ship view, and you can see as we're falling, we're still at twice speed, so we're not falling that fast. It's just I wanted to increase the speed, so we don't have to sit here for 10 minutes watching this craft come down to a slow stop. So as you can see, we didn't really achieve orbit, but we did achieve getting into the vacuum of space in 0 atmosphere. So I guess we'd have to pat ourselves on the back for that. Our astronauts are still alive, so I think that's a good measure. And unfortunately, I think we're going to land on a mountaintop here. So I think that's going to be pretty much it for this episode. I think what I'm going to do is going to have to add solid boosters to the rocket in order to get us a little higher into orbit before... Oh no! Oh, shoo. Okay, I thought my Kerbonauts died, but you can see how bad it is to land on the slope. Unfortunately, we had no control over that. Let's see if we can flip our module right side up. So you could do that by the AWS keys, allow you to turn, and also the E and Q allow you to rotate. So we can act like a wheel, and we can get back to Kerbal Space Launch Facility this way. It's going to take us a while, so I think we won't do that. We're going to go ahead and end the flight. And you can see our basically breakdown of what happened during our flight. Our flight, without the time boost, it would have taken 15 minutes and 48 seconds. But since I increased the time warp, as you can see, time warp times 2, we didn't have to sit there for 15 minutes. So that's good. When you're doing orbits to the moon, and they basically can get up to an hour, it's good to use the time warp, unless you have really nothing better to do for an hour. Looks like we achieved 7 Gs. We had the highest altitude was 240,000. We'll just go ahead, 250,000 meters. And the flight took about 17 minutes. So that's not too bad. And our video is looks like it's going to be under 15 minutes. So I think we're going to end it for this episode. We'll go back to the vehicle assembly program, building. And I think in the next episode we'll touch on is using these radial decouplers. And then we'll use these solid boosters to attach to those radial couplers. So I think we're going to touch on that in the next episode. But for this episode, I think we just wanted to discuss more of the winglets and the S.A.S. module. And proper decoupling sequences, because the last one was messed up. So other than that, I will see you on the next episode where we'll discuss how to use the side decouplers, and then we'll use some supports, and then we'll get into these rockets with this fuel. We'll try and add that to our last stage, so we can use the last stage while we're in orbit, and see if we can get orbit next episode. So other than that, don't forget to subscribe to catch the new videos, and I will see you on episode 3, Kerbal Space Program. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.